Hi. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I can't believe it's June already. Oh my goodness. Well, hello, everybody. I wanted to tell you that my name is Terry Rogaway, and I come to you live from the Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority. And I'm really excited to talk to you today about the fact that it's summer. It's summer, which means that this is the perfect time to talk to you about what it's like to go hiking in the heat. So we do have a Q&A feature today. So if you'd like to ask any questions, you can do that, and I will get to those at the end. And in the meantime, though, I will go through and we'll talk a little bit about the Open Space Authority and I know a lot about hiking in the heat. So through my 16 years of experience with the Open Space Authority, and prior to that, I was a park ranger with the city of San Jose, and I had to do first aids and things like that for people suffering from heat illnesses and things like that. So this is all about helping you come out and enjoy the parks and stay safe. Ta-da! So before I begin, I wanted to say that we acknowledge that the Open Space Authority works within the lands that were originally stewarded by the Awaswas, Chochenyo, Mutsun, and Tamian-speaking peoples. Today, we are honored to partner with the Amah Mutsun Tribal Band and Muwekma Ohlone tribe of the San Francisco Bay Area in our shared work to protect and restore the environment, and especially to connect people to the land. Welcome to summer. This guy's like, hey, what's up? Right? So one thing that you'll see a lot of out there at this time of year are lizards, lots of lizards and reptiles and things that love the heat. What does this mean? It means it is hot and it is dry. Everything goes to sleep. All the grasses go to sleep. They turn yellow and brown, and as you're walking, you can sort of feel like the moisture get pulled out of you and things like that. So we have to watch out for the fact that it's hot and dry. But don't worry, we're here to help. So aren't these guys cute? These guys are excellent at dealing with hot and dry weather. Hiking in the summer can be really fun as long as you're prepared. Hi, Fred. Hi, Ted. These are two of our volunteer docents and trail patrol people who are out there, and you might actually see them out on the trail. They might come by on their bicycles or on a hike to like make sure that you're okay. So we do have people looking out for you. So before you come out, what we recommend is that you do some research. And these days, there's so much of that you can do online. So, for example, you can go to Yelp or things like that. But me personally, I like to go to the website that belongs to the park that I'm going to visit, because I find they have the best information and also the most up-to-date information. So in the summertime, you have different things that could happen, like heat advisories. Some parks will get too dry and they have a high fire danger, so they'll actually close for the day, and you don't want to drive all the way out there and then find out it's closed. Open space doesn't tend to close for high fire danger unless all of the resources in the state have gone elsewhere to fight wildfires. If there's nobody to come and help with a wildfire, then we want you to be safe, and we might actually close a preserve in that situation. But for the most part, we usually don't. But you're going to want to know, right? And it's a good practice for any park that you're going to go to, that you check out and make sure that it is open during the summer, especially if it's been really hot for a couple days. Be sure that you check the weather. It's going to be hot. What if it's like one of those crazy summer like rainstorms? I could wish, right? I could totally wish. That's okay. But the other thing is that be really realistic about your abilities. You may have been in wonderful shape before COVID and before 2020, and maybe you're taking a little bit of extra time getting back into shape. Maybe you've decided that this is the opportunity to go do that. Start easy, be gentle with yourself, and just expect that there could be a little bit of what my doctor calls COVID deconditioning. So your lungs may have lost some of their ability to breathe as deeply as you used to when you're hiking and things like that. So you just want to be aware of that and pay attention to yourself, and be careful, and so don't choose like a 8-mile hike up a really steep hill. If you haven't been out in a while, start maybe with a 3-4 mile hike that meanders and goes up and down hills. And we have plenty of places like that for you. I recommend that you come out early. Okay, maybe not this early. This picture's like from 5 a.m. So the park's actually open at 6 o'clock in the morning, which is nice. You can get out before most people are awake on the weekend. And you will run into all the joggers and people wanting to ride their bikes and things like that. But it'll be a nice crowd and I don't mean like crowded. I mean that the people you run into will be happy to see you and friendly and nice and cool. It hasn't had a chance to get hot yet. So you can go out early and enjoy it and get home before it gets super hot. The other thing I'd like you to know is that we have quite a few evening programs that you can attend. So if you decide, the heat is not for me, but I really do wish I could take my family and myself outside, check our website and see when our next Starry Nights program is. We're also going to have binocular stargazing where you can bring your own binoculars and we'll show you how to find all kinds of neat things. So you can do that. We have night hikes that we're going to offer. So stargazing, night hikes, all kinds of stuff like that. So feel free to check for those kinds of programs because it's wonderful when it's been a really hot day to come out and have the peacefulness and look at the stars. And some of those locations like Rancho Cañada del Oro, you can see the Milky Way from the parking lot. It's amazing. You won't want to miss it. So now that you know you're going to come out during the daytime, what do you want to bring? Number one, bring your cell phone. Make sure it's fully charged. By the way, when cell phones get hot, the battery goes away really fast. So make sure that you keep it in a location where it's out of the sun and not going to get overheated because, yeah, I've fried a few phones that way. So just be aware of that. And we do recommend that you take a picture. So get a selfie, get somebody to take a picture. You have a friend take a picture of you and your friends and what you're wearing and things like that. And then that's great also for people if you want to post on social media and tell people, hey, we're at Rancho Cañada del Oro, or hey, we're at Coyote Valley and we're going to go on a hike. That's great. So that way people can see where you are. And if for some reason something happened and you took a little bit longer to get back, if your family's following you on social media, they can see what time you started and they go, and maybe they call us and say, hey, could you go find my cousin? Or something like that. So it's a good practice. I like to have a whistle in my pocket. This is like the yard duty whistle. Dude, you can get them like for really cheap and things like that. But whistles are great for scaring things that you're afraid of. So what I mean by that is if you were walking at dawn or dusk and you happen to see a mountain lion, or you saw a bobcat and you thought it was a mountain lion, or you saw a coyote and you're like, whoa, that's not a tame dog. And you get a little nervous, you can blow on a whistle and it startles them and they run away. So the other thing is that if something happens and you get tired and you get faint, and you're like, oh, and you go to lean on a tree and the tree is not there and you fall on, down the hill. If you have a whistle around your neck or in your pocket, you can blow a whistle and it doesn't make your voice go away. So you can go, help, help, help. And if you do that, eventually you'll lose your voice. Anybody who's been to see a concert and you're like screaming and yelling and having fun, or go to a sporting event, same thing. But if you were blowing a whistle, you can blow that forever because it makes noise when you put it in your mouth and you just breathe. So it's a good safety feature to have. You should always have one on your person when you go for hikes. Most importantly, bring water, bring water, bring water. None of our preserves have running water. They are very much nature preserves. They're there for the wildlife. We're protecting the habitat, and we're creating an environment where you can come out and see it and experience it almost the way, in the healthiest environment that it could possibly be for itself. We don't have running water. So please bring what you're going to drink with you. And I do highly recommend just regular water, or bringing something that, like, I like to have those little packets of like electrolytes that I can put in the water if I want to, but start with regular water. And on a really hot day, you're going to want two or three bottles of water. Don't be discouraged if it makes your little backpack kind of heavy. Water is heavy, but you're not going to mind it when you start to drink it. When you drink it, it gets lighter, and then you're healthier and you're safer. So the other thing is, definitely you're going to want sunscreen. I'm one of those people who does not like putting stuff on my skin. I totally understand, but you're going to want sunscreen. A lot of these parks have areas with shade, but a lot of it's not shaded. And often there's a nice little breeze, which is wonderful, but you won't notice that you're starting to get sunburned. So it's much safer and better. And then later you'll feel much better if you do put some sunscreen on before you start your hike. And then I have friends like this lady down in the corner who they cover everything. Well, she was only covering her head. This is a really ambitious hat. Some people will cover their face because they don't want the dust, trail dust and things going on their face. So you can do that too. Some people are sensitive to the fact that you can burn like this little triangle, like right here. A lot of people don't realize that. So when you put sunscreen on, you want to definitely put it under your chin because it can reflect up from the trail and burn you that way. So under the chin, and you want to put it down a little bit like into your neckline, just to make sure you don't get that little angry red triangle thing that happens. It's like, ouch, 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 later. Very dry, very dry. That's okay. You just want to make sure you don't end up like this. Oh no, SpongeBob. Yeah, our bodies are like sponges, and we're probably like 70-75% water. So the longer you go out in the park without drinking water and rehydrating, you're going to start to feel like a dried up sponge. And we don't want that for you. We want you to have a good experience. Hydrate, hydrate, drink things. This is not an advertisement for Gatorade. I just like the colors and lots of flavors. So be sure that you take things with you. And if you know you're going to go on a long hike, then you probably do want to bring electrolytes, because the more you sweat, you start to sweat out your salts and things like that. And your body needs help replacing them. So you'll feel much better if you do have something like Gatorade that you can bring with you and have as you hike more. Like, so if you start to get really hot, have you ever noticed how good that stuff tastes? Is because your body needs it. Okay. Oh, interesting hint. If you decide to go on a trip and go someplace with really high elevation, like from our area to like 7, 8, 9, 10,000 feet, like Colorado, it's a good idea to drink Gatorade as soon as you arrive. It turns out that Gatorade or other electrolyte drinks actually do help you with changes in elevation. They help your body adapt much faster, so you won't get the headache and all that. So that's just a sneak peek of a tip. Snacks. This says feeding littles. I'm like, I am not little, and I approve of all of these snacks. So ice cream probably won't keep on the trail, but you're welcome to try. But definitely take a look at some of these snacks. These are really good, right? You can have some cold tomato or cantaloupe or celery, things that have water in them. I like grapes too. Those are nice and juicy and things like that. And what I do is I put a little cooler in my car, and so that when I get back and I'm really hot and kind of parched, I can have a snack that's really wet and cool. And I like that. And these will also help you keep up your stamina while you're out on the trail and things like that. So I definitely recommend that. So here are some snacks that you can get to help your body to rehydrate. Let's talk shoes. Okay. Notice how it says waterproof. That's really wonderful. If you're going to be out backpacking and you're going to go camping and you're going to wear the same pair of shoes like forever, and you don't want to you're going to cross creeks and you don't want to get the water in your shoes. If you're just coming out to open space, the problem with waterproof shoes is that unless they're the really special material like Gore-Tex that breathes, most waterproof boots and shoes don't breathe very well, which means your toes get sweaty. So if your toes get sweaty and your feet start to sweat, things can happen that are unpleasant for your feet. And what I mean by that is that you can start to get blisters. So when your feet get wet and then they're rubbing against the inside of your shoes and things, it can just really be uncomfortable for you. So you want to choose shoes that are a little bit loose fitting. I mean, they're not going to fall off and they're not going to trip you, but they're kind of loose fitting. And then Notice this technique. You can actually wear 2 pairs of socks. So some people go like to REI or Any Mountain or Place a Sports Basement, and they get these really thin, kind of like nylon socks, and that's what they put against their feet. And then they'll put a hiking sock over the top of that. Now, this doesn't have to be big honking thick socks, okay? It could be like your regular hiking sock or a running sock or something like that. But what happens is when you have these two materials, the nylon part, like that material makes it slippery. So instead of doing that to your skin, the sock and the hiking sock do that to the inner sock, and then you don't get blisters. So it actually helps you not get blisters. But if you're like me and you know exactly where the blisters are going to end up on your feet, you can get moleskin, and it's a nice little padding. It's very sticky. So you can put it on your foot on the areas where you know it's going to kind of rub over time. And I always get a blister on this one toe. You can put this moleskin on there ahead of time, and it'll stop you from getting the blister in the first place. Make sure you put the sticky stuff on before you put powder. Some people like to put baby powder or other kinds of powders in their socks to try to keep their feet dry. So that's fine. But if you do that and then you try to put a sticker on there, it's not going to work. So make sure that you put the moleskin on, or Band-Aids or whatever you like to do, before you put the powder in your socks. If you do get a blister, please don't pop it. Please don't pop it. I know it's so tempting. Don't pop it unless you absolutely have to. If it's really hurting you and it's really big and it's in the way and you need to pop it, there are ways to do it that we hope that you can wait until you get home. You know, sometimes you can't, but if it pops on its own, something else you can put in your backpack is a little bit of Vaseline. So a little bit of ointment like that, because what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to leave the skin on there. Don't peel the skin off. And you're going to want to put a little bit of Vaseline on there and then put the Band-Aid over the top of it. And that will help it to heal faster and also keep infection from getting in there. So that's what we're worried about, is if you're just poking it with a stick or something, it's kind of like you could get an infection in your skin, and we don't want that to happen to you. So if it does pop, try to put some ointment. If you don't, just put a Band-Aid, leave the skin on there, put a Band-Aid. Eventually the skin will fall off on its own, and that's okay. And then you can get home. If you have mole foam, which is like moleskin but thicker, you can actually make like a little donut out of that. Oh, National Donut Day. You can put a donut around that and put that around the blister, and it'll keep your shoe from touching it. Mole foam is wonderful for that kind of thing. So you can do that, and that'll hold you over until you get home and can take a look at it. Sunscreen. I do not have the patience to put like goo on me. So I tend to use these ones that are a little bit more aerosol. That's my personal preference, but I like it. And it's also good if you have children and they're going to like run. They see you come in with that, they're like, no, and they take off. So if you could just like close your eyes and they're done, that's great. So you can do that. And the reason you want to do that is because you don't want to look like this. Oh no, lobster. You don't want to turn into a lobster, okay? Aside from having the opportunity to look a little silly for about 2 to 3 weeks while this heals, you notice that her nose is redder and her chest is redder. That's because those two areas get a lot more sunlight, like right here and right here, and can blister and all kinds of stuff later. But the other thing is that I have had friends who had skin cancer as a result of working out in the sun a lot. You don't want to open yourself up to that. So please use sunscreen, even if you're like me and you don't like stuff on your skin. Just try to use sunscreen so that you can be safe and not have to worry about that. Most of all, I want you to listen to your body. Let's talk a little bit about heat exhaustion. Unfortunately, I've actually had this one before. It's not pleasant, and we don't want this to happen to you while you're hiking on the trail. Heat exhaustion can have some sneaky symptoms as it starts to build up. So if you're hiking with people and they're like, and they're like chatter like a chipmunk and it's wonderful, and all of a sudden they get quiet, That is a sneaky symptom of heat exhaustion, that they're starting to have a heat illness. People get quiet. They get kind of like their mouth is really dry. They're trying to drink water, but it doesn't taste good to them. Especially if the water gets warm and it's kind of gross. Warmer water is actually better for you. It's easier for your body to use the water faster if it's room temperature. But when you're really hot and you're hiking, you don't want to do that. You want something cold. If somebody tries to drink something that's like ice cold and they're already starting to have a heat illness, it'll make them throw up. So you don't want them to do that either. So they need to just sip it or try to have water that's room temperature, like regular temperature and things like that. But if you notice that they're not wanting to drink water and then they get really crabby and cranky and they're like arguing with you and they're like, okay, sometimes teenagers do that too. But if adults start doing that, then you have to watch out, because that's a symptom. People get agitated. They get really agitated. And it's because they're starting to have really deep pain that they're not aware of on the surface of their body. And it's really dangerous. So that's when it's like a good opportunity to say, let's take a break. Let's go sit down in the shade. Let's sip some water. We'll just sit here and let the breeze, hopefully there's a breeze will blow against us and we'll just relax for a little bit. And if they've had some water and they've started drinking water again or Gatorade or something, and they want to eat just a little bit of food, something that's not super dry. I love power bars and things like that, but sometimes they just suck all the moisture out of your mouth. So if you have fruit or carrots or something like that, that's going to be wetter, that they can taste, that might start to restore them a little bit. So keep in mind that. So they stop talking, they get nauseated, they turn all red, they get all sweaty and they turn all red. And I've seen some people sweat so bad that you see salt crystals on their shirt. And that's like, whoa, that can be dangerous. So that's when you definitely want to break out the electrolytes and the Gatorade for people to drink. So we do have dangers with heat exhaustion. People can faint, you can fall, you can end up in the middle of the trail, you can go over the side, things like that. But also we have elders that come out to the preserve. So if you bring an elder out and it's a really warm day, and they can tend to become dehydrated a lot faster than we do. So that could happen. And so you just want to really pay attention and watch out for that, because heat exhaustion that's not addressed, and it may be that you feel bad too. And if you're hiking with somebody and you both feel bad and you're both trying to tough it out, you can actually make the situation worse, because now you're just keep going because we're just going to make it. We're just going to make it. Don't worry about it. Everybody's getting used to hiking again. It's okay. Turn around, go downhill. Okay. Because sometimes with seniors also, they won't tell you if they feel bad. All of a sudden they just go down and you're like, oh my gosh. So if that happens, you need to call for help right away. And then, but get them off of the hot surfaces. See this picture where she's still on the cement? At least she's in the shade. But you want to get them to someplace where they're safe, get them under the shade. If you don't have shade, then have people hold backpacks or stand in the sun so that they're in your shade while you're waiting for help. We have had people in the parks who were older and did have heat illness, and their friends just gathered around one side of them to block the sun while somebody else ran down to the bottom and got one of our open space technicians to come and help. So that's perfect. Don't try to make them walk down the hill, especially if they've already sort of like fallen. And if anybody passes out or loses consciousness, that's definitely a 911 call right away. And you don't want to try to move them. You just want to make them safe. This can happen anywhere, by the way. It doesn't have to be the desert. It could be in a neighborhood park. It could be in your backyard if you're doing yard work. It could be like this, like up on Coyote Ridge, Mayano Yakma Coyote Ridge. It could be up there too. Be like this guy. This guy reminds me of my dad. Every park we go to, this is what my dad does. He lays down in the shade next to a tree. So you getting into the shade and letting your body relax, especially laying down. If somebody starts to feel like they're just really not thinking straight, you can lift their feet up and that'll push the blood back up their body, like into their brain, and help with that. So definitely take a load off. He's probably trying to do sit-ups. So that's okay. I'll pretend he's sleeping. Be sure to drink water. Take water with you. Drink water, drink water. But wait, there's more. What else can you see in the park? when you're hiking in the heat. Dun, 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 vultures. This does not mean you are going to die. We have vultures, and vultures are doing a job when they're out there. So a lot of times when I was a kid, I'd look up and I'd go, oh, look at that eagle. And I didn't realize it was a vulture. Vultures are out, they work in the heat. They especially work in the heat because they can smell things that are dead for several miles. And they're probably looking for something that died, like roadkill or something like that. And so they're circling around, and they have a wonderful job in that there are garbage men. They find dead things and they eat them so that it gets used, like the whole body gets used. So that's good. So you might see these guys, and if they start circling around, don't be alarmed, just drink some water. Oh, how cute. We have cattle. So you will definitely see a lot of cattle out in the open space preserves, even in the summertime. And the thing is, I used to feel bad for them when the grass turned brown like this, because they were eating this dry, I just tried to imagine what that was like, eating this dry, crunchy grass, right? But it turns out that is the most nutritious that this grass will ever be, because part of what it does when it turns brown is it's pushing all the sugars up into the blades of grass. So yes, it's dry, but it's the most nutritious. So we have cattle that graze almost all of our lands. And the reason that they're doing that is because the other thing that we have to worry about in summertime is fire. So there can be fires, and the cows, they're kind of like giant lawnmowers. They're like chop, 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 chop. And they eat all of the grass down to about an inch tall. And then they move on. And what happens is when that little short grass catches fire, it burns kind of cooler, and it burns slower than if there was nobody trimming the grass. And so we've had fires happen in our parks before where 40 acres burned instead of 400. And it was because we had cattle that were working and doing their job. So if you have kids and you see cattle out in the park, when you come to the preserves, please discourage them from mooing at the cows. So for cows, mooing is they call it lowing, is a sign of distress. I admit it, I'm so tempted. I moo in my head. I just don't moo out loud because it scares them and they think something's wrong. So mothers will call their babies that way, or if a baby gets separated from their mother and they're frightened, they'll moo. And then everybody's like, what's going on? And they try to help them. So don't scare the cows. Look at these guys. You can see bobcats and coyotes. So we have had quite a few bobcats and coyotes in the preserves lately. This is good news. It means there's ample food source for them. So plenty of squirrels and rabbits and things like that. And they're doing their job of controlling those populations for us. So bobcat is kind of like, it's kind of like a big fat house cat with an attitude and eyeliner. See how he looks like he has makeup on under his eyes like that? That helps him see farther. And then he's got the little tufts on the top of his ears, little spikes like that. But they call him Bob because it looks like somebody bobbed their tail, that little tiny tail. And boy, do they show lots of emotions with that tail. So bobcats are really great at helping us control our squirrel population. We get too many squirrels, we get too many gophers. There's lots of pocket gophers and things like that. And these guys are great for eating that and helping keep those populations from getting out of control. And so the quieter you are when you're hiking, the more wildlife you will see. And what I've noticed about bobcats is bobcats don't run like other animals do. You'll be walking along the trail and some rabbit will go and take off. Or a squirrel will. And the thing is, if they didn't move, you wouldn't have noticed them. It would have been fine. You would have walked right by and not seen them, but they panic and they run. Bobcats kind of don't really do that a whole lot. So if you want to see them, you just regularly scan your eyes. When you take a break, just look around, just kind of look around and let your eyes relax and see, because sometimes all you'll see is the tail flick, or you'll see an ear twitch and your eye will be drawn to the motion. And then you're like, oh, wow, there's a bobcat right there. And it looks really regal. So same thing. I've seen coyotes run a lot. They do run a lot. They're a little bit more fearful, I think, than the bobcats are. So Coyotes will stay at a distance, and they're kind of like the size of a German Shepherd. And you can tell by both of these guys that they really blend in. So they blend in so well. And the coyotes eat a lot of squirrels and smaller predators and things like that too. So sometimes in the morning or in the late afternoon, like right before the park closes, you can actually hear the coyotes when they hunt together. Because when they get happy and excited because they caught a squirrel, they sing. So you'll hear them like with a holler, squeaky sound, kind of like that. It's kind of a squeaky howl. So you can actually hear them. And if you live over by the parks or in the Almaden Valley, sometimes even over by Alum Rock Park, sometimes you actually hear them after the sun's gone down. You can actually hear them like talking to each other or singing because they caught food. Oh, some of my favorites are deer. So you'll definitely get to see lots of deer. In the heat of the day, they'll be bedded down under trees. So you want to look for the movement of their ears. You'll see their ears move, and they'll be laying down like under the trees and stuff like this. And one of the things I found fascinating about deer is that when the babies are little and they have fawns and they have spots like this, it turns out that they don't have a smell. So their mom will tell them, lay down right here. And then she'll go for a walk and go get something to eat. And the baby stays curled up and they don't smell like anything. So if a predator comes, like a coyote or a bobcat or a mountain lion, as long as that baby doesn't move, they won't be noticed. And so they hold real still and they stay real quiet and they have no scent. And then their mother will come back and sort of nudge them and they get up and they start following her. So that's kind of cool. You can like get to experience them that way. Oh, if you're out in the evening, this is probably happening around your house. I know it's happening around my house. I got a little notification. I looked on my Nest Cam and there was a really big skunk on my front porch. So these guys are out in force now. They like the warm weather. If you have a yard and you tend to water a little bit too much and your ground gets kind of like more saturated, what happens is the bugs and the grubs end up getting closer to the surface. So people that have lawns and stuff, the critters that are under the soil will come closer to the surface because there's a little bit too much moisture. And what'll happen is the skunks come and they dig it up. So if you go outside in your garden and there's like looks like somebody was digging, it's basically skunks that are trying to get the critters under the soil. Out in the park, they'll walk around. They have a usual route that they do. So you can usually see them when we're trying to close the parks. You can see them and they're kind of funny because they kind of walk sideways like this. And they'll do that. And you're like, whoa. And the thing is, they're not always paying attention. So we see them and we go, oh, stinky pew, right? A lot of times they won't notice us. So you could be walking to your car and there could be a skunk going along the edge of the parking lot. And all of a sudden they notice you. And the first thing they do is stare. And they freeze like that. And then you go, oh, and then they go, ka-thump. They stomp their feet at you. And that's supposed to be really scary because they don't understand. We're not scared of the stomp. We're more scared when they turn around because we don't want to get sprayed with the stinky pew. So you will notice that they'll do that where they'll stomp to warn you and they're trying to scare you. And it's best to pretend to be scared and go, oh, and back away because then they go, ah, and then they take off and they leave you alone. If they get really frightened though, they will put their tail up and they turn around and they will spray, and you do not want that experience. Ooh. If it does happen, tomato soup, tomato paste, if you're really desperate, ketchup. If you have pets that get sprayed, you're going to want to do the same thing. Just saturate them in tomato products and then let it soak for about 15 minutes before you try to wash it off. And it's still going to be a little fragrant, but I do have park ranger friends that unfortunately got sprayed trying to close parks and things like that. So it can happen, but this is just another sign that I want you to not have a stinker of an experience. Come out to the parks, enjoy it, have fun, bring your water, be safe. And if you have any questions, feel free to call us at the office. Our phone number over there is 408 224 7476. And you can ask us questions if you want to know about the status of the preserves or which one's open or stuff like that, if you don't want to look on the website. And feel free to contact me. I'm usually administrative, so today it was special. I got to come talk to you, which I enjoy. And I like the admin stuff too, but it's fun to talk to you. So feel free to email me and ask any questions if you have any concerns or questions about these things, or if you want to know when the nighttime activities are. You can also go to our website and you can sign up to get notifications so that you'll see all the programs that are happening in the months to come. And you'll start to get those newsletters, and then you can get in on all the really cool stuff that you might enjoy. So hopefully I will see you out in the preserves, and that you'll get to come out there and enjoy some of our early morning or evening programs that we have, or just come out and enjoy the heat and the sunshine. And everybody stay safe out there. And thank you for joining me for this program. And I look forward to hopefully meeting you out in the preserves. Thank you.